Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with symcotraining. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I want to start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Selling in the Motor Trade. Today it's my pleasure to be with Alistair Horsburgh. Now, Alistair is the Chief Strategy Officer of the See It Now Group. See It Now Group is a group that you'll know from the videos, but actually they've expanded so much over the last 2 or 3 years. I just had a look at their website. I think there's 10 different companies under the group. So I want to find out about what Alistair is doing and how he's been building the group. Alistair, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Simon. Great to be here.
Before we start, it's always nice to get to know our guests. Can you share with us your journey in the motor trade? I understand that you're third generation motor dealer, and I'd like to get an idea of where you started before we get into the See It Now group.
Absolutely. So you're absolutely right. My grandfather had a Volkswagen business in Manchester in the 60s, and my father took over that business when my grandfather fell ill, and I got involved in the motor trade in 1986. There we go. So a few years ago.
A few years ago. So what motivated you to follow in the footsteps of your grandfather and father then? What was it about the motor trade that got you into it then?
So I think in all fairness, I probably wasn't very academic. So I came out of school, attempted to go to college, wasn't particularly academic, and figured out that what I could do is I could sell. I think that was sort of the weird thing that came out of the experience of going off to college. And I was taught by some very old school salespeople in car dealerships wearing gold chains and things like that.
I've got the image.
that maybe didn't necessarily start me off on the right path, but it was a good journey. I think that in that time. We had a Vauxhall Opel business, and it was the sort of the late 80s, Vauxhall Cavaliers around and Vauxhall Novas and things like that. That was my...
So, forgive me, you said Opel there. Vauxhall or Opel? Or it was called Opel then?
At the time, in the late 80s, Vauxhall and Opel was still kind of in the same...
Okay.
The same showrooms. We still have Bedford actually on the Bedford trucks were still on the signs as well. So it soon came down, but that was the early startings of my time in the car industry anyway. So,
were there any valuable lessons that you learnt when you started in the business there? Because this is a shameless plug for our first 90-day sales training program. We often say that the skills you learn in the first 3 months, good and bad, last you for the rest of your career. Is there anything you learnt in that first 90 days that you think is valuable now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that the value of watching people and understanding your customers on the forecourt in the showroom, but also the salespeople in the dealership. I think it was all about people. It was just watching salespeople and learning from them. I mean, you didn't. To be fair, some of their traits you didn't necessarily want to learn, but you didn't know what was good and what was bad when you were doing that. So I would say that a good lesson today is certainly the first 2 to 3 months of any new salesperson's life are all about learning some good quality skills. That's where you come in. So it very much is. It's a good. I mean, listen. They say that sales is one of the oldest industries in the world, isn't it? So if you can find that you can identify somebody's needs, somebody's problems, somebody's challenges, and give them a solution for it. That's the whole idea about selling. Certainly was from my perspective. New cars and used cars were a good starting point. I also got involved in a rental company. So my father had a rental business alongside the car dealership, and that was all about learning about utilization, how to rent vans out, and how to work out how much you could charge for them. You sort of 1986 deregistered transit vans, even though we were a Vauxhall dealership, that was the go-to van in the day, trying to work out how much you charge for a van. So that was very much, and I did a bit of everything. So I was a bit of I went around the dealership, went to the parts department and the service department. I didn't get on the spanners, as they called it then.
Yeah.
did do a bit of time in the paint shop. I was taught by one of the spray painters to paint an old Vauxhall Chevette that I had, which was two-tone blue. And I did a reasonably good job at it, but that wasn't my that definitely wasn't my forte. And I couldn't remember enough part numbers. I always remember at the time before computers, the way that the parts people, the parts advisors could part numbers,
brilliant,
absolutely amazing. And microfiches and voice response.
Yes, microfiche. I was just thinking of that. I got to say, I had a similar start in the background. I started washing cars and then in a parts department. And I've got to say, I hated it at the time. Absolutely hated it. I just wanted to get into selling. But looking back on it, it was a great grounding just to see how every department works and integrate. And I just wish there was more of that happen still in this day and age.
I think you're right. I mean, you can say that it's just not the way that things are done today, because there are, you don't earn your stripes that way. There are so many industries that have changed beyond recognition because people don't earn the stripes the same way. It's just different. But I do think that, I've seen so many salespeople in the car industry over the years, and it doesn't take much to work out which ones are the good ones. It is a quality that some people have got, but I don't think actually you need to be what I call the old school superstar salesperson anymore. If you can follow a process, and if you can talk passionately about the products that are in the showroom and pass that information to the customers that want it, because they come in with questions they probably have got answered off the internet anyway. But if you can validate those and talk to a customer, I still believe to this day, even though we're here to talk about technology, people still buy from people, and I absolutely agree. So I think that if you can have that personality, we all smile, stand up when we answer the phone, all of those kind of old school messages. I still think that some of that, if we did more of that today, I do think we'd sell more vehicles.
Listen, obviously I want to talk about video and technology and AI and where we're going, but I tell you what, one thing that I still get in 2023, salespeople saying, oh, I don't want to show my face on the video, or I'll show the car, or I don't want to do this. And it's like, hold on, they're going to see you when they turn up anyway. People buy people, and there's still that resistance there. But I'd like to get your views on all of that, because we have the master of video here. But this is a question that really separates the true motor traders. Alistair, do you remember the first car you sold?
So, you've asked me this, and I have to rack my brain. I remember the first new car that I sold.
Okay.
Probably don't remember the first used car I sold. I think I was buddied up with a used car salesperson for a while, and I think he would send me out to warm the car up.
Yes, yeah.
I couldn't really claim that as a first sale, but I do remember selling it would have been an overage stock flat. I forget the color. It was a flat dark green color, Astra Merit 1.23 door. I mean, it was one of these things that when you'd ordered that car and it arrived, somebody would turn around and say, "Who ordered that car?" Why do we have this in stock? But it was definitely overage, and I remember selling it. But it was not the most powerful of engines in a 1.2 overhead valve 1.2 Merit 3-door Astra. It was a little bit sluggish, but that was my first new car. That's what I remember.
Fair enough. So the journey from there to now running See It Now Group, how does that happen? How did video sneak up on us? Because, and the reason why I asked that, I can remember it was the managing director of Blockbuster Videos, talked about Netflix, and I think he said something along the lines of, Netflix is not even on our radar. Okay, you're not going to be able to email videos. It's just never going to happen. It takes too long. Clearly they had that wrong. Can you talk us about the journey of how See It Now started?
Yeah, so every time somebody asks me the question, there's always a 5-minute version or a 55-minute version. So I'm going to try not to give you the 55-minute version. I think that the bit that's relevant is that when I got myself my feet under the table in retail, I did 18 and a half years of retail in the end, and we sold our garages in 2004. So in the late 90s, 1996, I'll go back this far and then I'll talk to you about today. So Auto Trader launched autotrader.co.uk in thereabouts 1996, and we put together a team of people. We just built a new dealership right opposite Fords of Winterwood. We had a small Vauxhall business, and everybody said we were nuts, including Jeremy Hicks, who was the I'm pretty sure Jeremy at the time was one of the directors of Vauxhall. He was our market area, looking after our market area, and he said you shouldn't be doing this. And actually, my father said, no, we're going to do it, because if you're going to open a bike shop, you may as well open one next to Halfords, because it was the best. So anyway,
I know the site. I know the site. I can the Arnold Clark site now.
That's right. That's exactly right. So the bit that's relevant is that there was a small team of three of us. There was a lad called Jason Ashley, and I'll talk about Jason in a minute, and a lad called Drew Lewis, or Andrew Lewis. The three of us got together, and we created this sort of digital environment where we were retailing cars, selling cars online in 1998. We had a salesperson just to selling cars online in 1998, and we built a brand through the Network Q environment, and that's what inspired me to do things digital. Fast forward to 2010, we sold the garage in 2004, and a couple of years before that, Jason left and went to become a salesperson at Rybrook Jaguar in Warrington, which sadly is no more. They've just knocked it down. But he actually, because I wasn't the founder of the video business. There were two marketing people who founded it off the back of some seed funding from Honda in 2008. And I got involved in 2010, and the founders were selling a few, losing a few, and they were doing it all with live video. And Jason had sold the idea to Roger Carroll, his boss, about the idea of doing live video. And to be fair to Jason, they took it on and actually made a success of it. And then I met Jason. In fact, we just passed each other in the car one day, and I gave him a call, said, what are you doing? He said, you need to see this technology. So I saw it back into 2010, met the founders, and kind of that was our sort of foray into video. It was not fraught with bumps and lumps. In fact, many people turned around and said to me that you're nuts. I won't name them because that's not fair to do that, but I still remember almost all of them that said that we were nuts.
Well, I'll name one. A very good friend of mine, and both of us, we know this man, Guy Orman. He turned around and said, fair play. He said, Alistair just seen the potential in it. And I think Guy said, hey, he had so much on his plate at the time. He had so many other things he was doing there. But he said, no, that Alistair just seen it. And he can't be unique there. There must be lots of people thinking, doing live video? Because it wasn't even emailing through the videos at that stage, was it? It was just live video.
It was actually really, it was quite challenging, to be fair. And there were some very early adopters, and maybe those names will come out shortly. But I remember going to Mercedes-Benz retail in Manchester to do my live demos. That's where I was doing them from. And we were doing, the voice was down the telephone line. So you'd actually ring somebody through a headset and be talking on the phone. And you'd be doing live video down, and you'd be streaming it through the Wi-Fi, which at that time wasn't exactly great, but there could be a huge delay between the audio and the video. So you'd have to pan your camera around and count how many seconds it would take for, because you'd have to do a test to start off with, ask the customer, just tell me when my hand will appear in front of the camera, and you counted the number of seconds, and then you knew how long the delay was. So that was a real challenge, and we did that all the way through 2011. And the first manufacturer that really gave us a break was BMW. So we did work with 8 BMW retailers over 6 months with live video. And Richard Price, thank you, Richard. It was the man who put his hand in his pocket, and they saw the model of future retail for BMW. And we did this piece of work with these 6 retailers. And the closest one to me was Halliwell Jones in Southport, Philip Jones and Jim Houghton. And to be fair to Jim was the one who helped me with Richard, for Richard to understand what it could do for the BMW network. So that was the kind of how it started with live video. And then the February of 2012 was the launch, and I can never remember the model number. All the BMW dealers will be shouting at me. Whatever the 3 Series launch was in February 2012, I'm sure somebody will tell me later. That was when it was launched to the BMW network, and Richard gave some statistics up on stage about what video had done for the. And this was just in the car sales environment. We weren't even using it in the workshop at the time, and that's how it all started. And that was the first foray was BMW retailers around the country looking at how they could utilize video. But at that time, we changed it from live video to recorded video. If you remember, the first iPhones had come out in sort of back end of 2007, 2008, and we just about got the use of a video on it. So iPods then became available, and the iPod then had a camera on the back of it. And that came, I forget exactly when, probably 2010, 2011, the iPod came out with a camera on the back of it. So it became quite a cheap piece of equipment that we could use, and we could put it into a kit box, and we could offer that to the retailer. So that's how it all started. And believe it or not, back in those days, we were watching every video being uploaded. You know, we were seeing all these videos being done, and we're not in the, we're doing a million videos a month now, so we obviously can't watch anything like it, but we could watch them at the time, and it was interesting. And then one day we saw a salesperson they obviously handed the camera to the iPod to a technician in the workshop, and a technician was recording a video of a car underneath of a car. And we thought, well, that's a great idea. Why don't we just go and put it into the workshop instead?
Wow, I thought it was the other way around. I honestly thought it started in workshop first, but no, other way.
And fair enough, that same name, Jeremy Hicks, came back up, because Jeremy at the time was then running Audi, and he'd gone on his sort of expedition through the Vauxhall network, ended up in Audi, and he commissioned a company called Masters Allen to create Audi Cam, and Audi Cam at the time was live video.
Yeah.
And it then morphed into recorded video, but he created Audi Cam, and that was, you know, there'll always be an argument into the day about whether we were in the first in the workshop or they were, but it was the same time, 2011, 2012.
Okay.
And that's where it all started from.
Wow. Okay. I do remember the Audi Cam coming out there, and I must admit, I thought you guys were behind it. I thought it was exactly the same thing, but obviously not there.
No, so it's, I mean, if I take you to the present day, I mean, it was my tenure as CEO ended in the summer of 2021. Jeffrey Page Morris, who I met, Jeffrey, he was one of the people that I met, not actually very long ago, 2016. We met. Jeffrey was running the Jaguar Land Rover division for Sytner at the time, and Jeffrey had made a decision that he wanted to retire out of Sytner, and I'd said to him, listen, I really would like to do some work with you. I see the value of what you can bring to the business. He said, you definitely see what we're doing. And Jeffrey joined the business as a non-exec the back end of 2016 and really helped me to go through a challenging period of my time where we went seeking investment and looking to take some of the shareholders out of the business who, you know, decided that they wanted to leave, et cetera, et cetera. And Jeffrey then, fortunately, as for me, in the back end of 21, early 2022, put his hat in the ring to become the group CEO. So Jeffrey today is our group chief exec. I took a back step into the chief revenue officer role for a while, and I now run strategy across the group. And the reason why I'm doing that is because we've got 10 businesses across the group, and it's a challenge to make sure that we're doing it for the right reasons. So, and I can talk to you a bit more about that if you'd like to. So,
yeah, I'd love to talk about that. But you've seen lots of dealers in your time there, good, the bad, the ugly, dealer groups to single dealerships. In your opinion, what are some of the qualities? What are some of the skills that you said before? You can see a salesperson straight away, you think they're a great salesperson. What are some of the character traits that you've seen that separates the good from, or the great from the good?
So I think that I've listened to a few of your podcasts, and actually John O'Hanlon last week was talking about, you know, the piece of rubbish on the floor, etc., on the forecourt, and I think you mentioned what you did. I think that when you drive onto when we used to drive onto a forecourt, you could pick out a good retailer because you know there was somewhere to park, and the cars were always lined up, and there was something about the place. There was always, you know, people were smiling. They would be attentive. You could be spoken to. You wouldn't be left walking around the forecourt. Anybody and everybody would speak to you, whether they were wearing a pair of overalls or whether they were wearing a suit or whether you looked like they were working there or not. And I think that kind of changed. I think over the last 10 years or so, people have started to look at people's digital presence. So whether they've got a social, you know, what kind of social media they've got out there, what their retailer website looks like, and of course, it's a bit of a challenge to stand away from the crowd. You know, people do want to be different, but I don't think there's any one particular thing. You know, we still have this challenge where, you know, when customers make inquiries to dealerships, there are still a proportion of these inquiries that don't get responded to, and I think that's really frustrating. And you know, you don't need me to quote the Auto Trader statistics. There's lots of the Auto Trader do that top 1,000 retailers they mystery shop every year. And it's still running that 25% of those people that were made a mystery shopper inquiry on behalf of, you know, for Auto Trader didn't respond. So all of these,
it got worse in the time when we couldn't get used cars. It got worse, and I see salespeople all the time thinking, "Well, that car's sold anyway, too hard." They don't even bother getting back to the customer. It absolutely got worse since, which is criminal. You think in 2023, but it's still happening.
I think. Do you know what? We're seeing a bit of a shift here. I think that the way that consumers make decisions about where they buy vehicles from, I think it's constantly evolving, constantly changing. People make recommendations. They don't necessarily look for the cheapest vehicles. They want reassurance that they're buying something that's of good quality, and they want reassurance that they're buying something that's a reasonable price. People will definitely pay more for better quality and better service. I absolutely fully believe that, and we even see things like price becoming something that's less relevant. I see that certainly when video came for us, when we started to put video in the showroom, one of the biggest things that made an impact was there was always a challenge from adoption of video, because the sales managers wanted the customers in the showroom. They wanted to be able to do that because they felt that they had more control when the customer was in the showroom. They could make more deals, so to speak. And they feared that if all they did was send a video to the customer, then the customer would have all the information they want and they wouldn't be interested. I'm actually selling my house today, not today, at the moment. And the local estate agent said to me, we don't, because I said, can you put a video online for my house? And they went, no, we don't do that because we want all the customers to walk into the door. We want them to come and experience your house.
It's still happening.
I said, are you serious? And they said, yes. And I said, well, can I pay for it to be done then? And they said, well, no, not really. And so I'm going, so honestly, this is not just a car industry thing.
Wow.
Having said that, one of the things that when the salespeople who were adopting video at the time really understood the value, what we saw a big change in the way that those salespeople utilized video. Your point about hair and makeup, what they sound like, this was not a male or female thing. This was all about vanity. I didn't care, making a difference whether you were northern, southern, wherever you came from. It made absolutely no difference whatsoever. What made the difference was that those salespeople who understood the value of their personality on a camera in front of a customer were the ones that won.
Yes.
And I have many a salesperson said to me, I don't like it when the customer comes into the showroom because they know who I am.
Well, that's a problem. Oh, and they might just buy a car. Wow.
So every single response to that, I said, so did the customer come in and buy a car? And they said, I said, so what are you worried about?
Exactly.
It came down to control. And of course, if you can pass control at the right time, if you can pass control to the consumer to make a decision on their own, or with the information that you provided to them, then I think that really helps. And that was definitely one of the big light bulb moments for a lot of salespeople, a lot of sales managers, where if you could construct a video that was not, I mean, we've heard stories about retailers forcing salespeople to make videos, you got to do 3 a day, etc., etc. We don't condone that, but we do understand that it is, I've always said 25 years ago, and this is a true story. So 25 years ago, I used to pay salespeople to do test drives. Pay them £10 to do a test drive. No joke, £10. And I used to get grief every board meeting and say, why are you paying salespeople to do test drives? I said, because every 2 test drives to sell a car.
Yep.
We do 50% demo. So I'd go, so what's your problem? It's costing me £20 to sell a car, to do more test drives. And all I wanted was, and okay, you might say, well, they shouldn't have been paid. Well, that was just the way that we did it. Now, I'd also say to you that today, video, whilst we didn't necessarily say that a video actually sold a car, we just knew that the more videos you did, the more cars you sold. So I saw many salespeople in dealerships who were not Jack the Lad. They weren't flying by the seat of their pants. They were very much an average salesperson selling an average number of vehicles. Whereas they started to do video consistently for every single inbound inquiry, guess what? They sold more cars. And so this is what we saw. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that video turned these people into heroes, but what it did do was it gave them a platform to be different. And if you can be different and you can address your personality, it is a monologue. So it's not like doing a 2-way video when you are waiting for a response back from a customer. But if you can do a monologue on a vehicle and you can do it passionately and you can talk about the features that the customer is really interested in, then you have a winner. And that's what happened.
Yeah, it's a few things just pop in my mind then. Don't you love it when you get the young salesperson got into video, and we're going back in 2013, 15, and you'd see Bob in the corner going, oh, forget that. But Bob starts to get on board when they see the young guy selling cars. And it's like, what's he doing? How do I do that? And you know what? Bob is brilliant on the video when he sees it. I can remember I went to an NADA conference. I can't remember the time. It must have been around 2013, 15. And I still have the video on my iPad. And I was on one of the conferences. I got all excited about, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Sean V. Bradley. It might have been one of the guys out there talking about video. So I got all excited about iJot, I think was a app they were talking about, or one of these video sharing apps. I got all excited about it. And this salesperson in this dealership, he went through a video, and Alistair, I promise you, it was horrendous. Okay, I gave him the iPad, so right, this is what you need to do. Start with yourself, which he didn't do. Talk about this car's been in our workshop. One of our senior technicians has checked 145 points. It's an approved used car. Talked about the reconditioning we've done. And he said, used car check. I said, if it's got brand new tires, let the customer know the tires have still got 6 millimeters, 8 millimeters. He said, the tires have been maintained. Also, I promise you, I looked at it. I thought, oh my goodness. Okay, well, don't worry. That's why it's the first one you've done. You've not sent it yet, so let's do it properly. He said, I've already sent it. And I went, oh no. But I tell you what, I learned a lesson that day. As I'm turning around, I said, well, that's not exactly the way to do the video. The customer come back and said, wow, no one else has done that for me. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I'll go ahead with that. But of course, that was when no one was doing video. Yeah. Now, I don't know anyone who's not doing video. So video, it's not something, it's part and parcel of what you do. It's part and parcel of doing a demonstration. You do the video. I think it's just what we need to do in a sales process now.
I agree with you. And I think you've made a really valid point a little while ago about used car shortage and shortage of cars. I think that it's a real challenge today. Not so much today. Perhaps we're coming out of the bulk of it. I think there is supply, but we're never going to get those vehicles back. So there's going to be this glut of vehicles away from the market for a considerable amount of time, depending on what age profile customers are buying and the retailers are selling them for. So you're always going to see this problem. But I do believe that, you know, video has opened it's opened the showroom up to the customer in his front room. That's what we always used to say, you know, can the customer stay at home? And actually, fair play to Honda. When Honda gave the seed funding to Andrew and Donna back in 2008, their concept was they wanted the consumer to stay at home in their armchair, and they wanted to bring the showroom to them. That was originally their goal, their idea. And in all fairness, you know, like even live video today, I don't know whether you've experienced it, Simon, but you know, I was looking at buying a vehicle, and I was on a website, and I was getting some help from somebody on the other end. But the thought of me, I was in a place where it wasn't appropriate for me to turn my camera on. I didn't want to turn my camera on because I'm walking outside. It's just not the right thing to do. But you know, in that instance, I think that live video still today is still more. It's more akin with us doing a FaceTime with our family. You know, it's still not quite there. But those that want to use it, it's available. But we're still 99.5% of all of our video content is recorded. And it's kept because they can share it across their family. They can show their loved ones. They can share it across their peer network, whoever helps them to make decisions.
They can watch it 28 times after they've bought the car, which we know. Exactly. I want to go back into something you said before. And a good friend of the show, Gavin Hydes, who runs the Joe Duffy Group in Ireland. There's something you said. You would pay your salespeople £10 for every demonstration you do. And I don't mind sharing this because Gavin mentioned this on the podcast that he recorded. And he's one of the only dealer groups I know that he actually doesn't target salespeople on results, but he targets people on activity. And the activity is number of inquiries they speak to, number of demonstration drives they've done, number of follow-up calls there. I think in there is the number of the videos they send out to people. I'd have to get my head around the criteria. I'm pretty sure it is. But he targets the people on the activity. And it's just music to me is what you're talking about, because the people that get the activity right, they're the ones that are selling in his group, because it's that old-fashioned sheepskin, big chains salesperson. I can close anyone. I've been Pendle trained. I don't think we need that anymore, but get the process right. The results look after themselves.
And I think you're right. You know, even back to our online internet salesperson in 1998, you know, Anthony Kearns, if you're out there, I still remember you. He was a good process person. He could follow a process. And all we had was the customer would make an inquiry. At that time, we had a Sony Mavic floppy disk camera. If those of you out there, there's probably people out there not even old enough to remember or know what a floppy disk camera is.
Yeah.
And then we send photographs off, and we knew that we had to send we could get like a maximum of 12 photographs, and we would send multiple emails to the same customer with all these pictures on. And that was a way that we could show the photographs. And we knew that that process worked. And also, as we started to, we built our academy up from scratch in the 2000 and I'm going to get my dates right now, early 2013, 14. We started to put our academy together, and it was all about, can we pass on best practice? Can we learn? And the biggest rollout that we did off the dealer groups, this was with the manufacturers when Volkswagen, and in fact, Ian Plummer, now at Autotrader, Ian Plummer at the time, he worked with us on the strategy for Volkswagen, which was about bricks and clicks. Mm-hmm. And that was the sort of the beginning of their view of what omnichannel was going to look like. And I'm not a fan of that phrase, but it's about whatever the customer's choice was about the way that they would go to market and the way that they would buy the vehicle. And another name out there in the big ether at the moment, a lady called Karen Hilton, who's now running Heycar. She was the should we say, she was the lead on running the project. So she helped us roll out Volkswagen Video in 2014. And as a result of it, was an immense success, rolling that out to the whole network. And we also ran an academy program off the back of that, which was Volkswagen Video Stars, where we actually put a van on the road and we drove the van around all the Volkswagen retailers in the UK, showing them in the workshop how the technicians could use video. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't as if we just put software into the environment and we just let people get on with it. Mm-hmm. We did want to pass on best practice. Now our academy today is stronger than ever, and we have Amir done a great job running our academy, and he's got together a sort of a refined strategy around video today that is almost, it's quite cliche in some respects because it's back to basics, Simon. But if you're talking about sales techniques, there's nothing really complicated. It's just about putting them together in the right order. Yep. So we do talk about the use of video in today's society, maybe being slightly different to what it was when video first came out. But if you get it right, your consumer will still be wowed. You know, we still get 5-star reviews that we see on videos that, if quite frankly, I look at them and I go, you could have done a lot better. Yeah. But the consumer still is wowed by the fact that actually they've had somebody send them a personalized video and they've gone, hey, Simon, it's Alistair at the dealership. Thanks for your inquiry. All of these things matter. And that is still my view of people buying from people. That is still the essence. And in my mind, it's the foundation of the industry, is people buying from people.
That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, symcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn. Thank you.